Servus, Matthias Eichler in your ear, and this is Singletrack. This week, I'm joined by Aum Gandhi to talk about his second finish at the Zion 100. He succeeded last year when I failed, and he followed up this year with a big improvement in time on an equally as tough race. Aum also shares his passion on why he runs and the motivation of what gets him out of bed in the morning. This upcoming year is stacked with incredible adventures for him, and it's exciting to hear a story of someone who used to barely move to someone who takes on the most audacious adventures. Let's hear the story straight from Aum, and be sure to stay all the way to the end. I've got a special announcement about a new Rock Handy race coming. New to Rock Handy, that is. Aum, welcome to Singletrack. This is very, very exciting. And it is very exciting because you just finished Zion 100. And we have lots to talk about. Say hi to our listeners.
Hey, everybody. I'm super excited to be on Singletrack FM. And it's just a huge honor, man. Like, anytime I get the opportunity to do something like this, it always ends up being a great conversation and a good time.
Thank you. And it is really true, right? I mean, we've never met. We don't really, live in different parts of the country, different running history and stuff. And you sort of get together and something just works, right? You sort of click and you find sort of common ground by talking about running these insane distances and seeing how that fits into our regular life, and that creates inspiring stories.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, I know when we first talked, we were sharing stories about Zion and what a tough race that is, and just was blessed to have the opportunity to go back and do that race again. And I'm sure you'll go back and you'll conquer that race as well.
So yes, we should dive in and talk about this. This is like my torture episode, my first DNF last year at Zion, and it was absolutely brutal. Having said this, I at least made it 70 miles, so I made it longer than I've ever run before, so I felt good about it. But we should briefly talk about Zion last year and then compare it to this year. You ran it last year. Your finishing time was a time that I probably would have missed too. Tell me how your race was last year, briefly.
My last year's race was, well, to start off, my bib number was 404, so that should tell you everything you need to know. It was a 404 not found kind of race where
That's amazing. Almost. That's a little tech insider joke. I like it.
Yeah, should have been a bit of foreshadowing. It was my first 100, so inexperienced. A lot of things went wrong, which things always go wrong during 100 hours, but had a lot of issues during the last race, ankle injury and just constant GI issues, and just really got creamed by that race and ended up finishing the race with just actually a couple minutes to spare. I was the DFL, which means dead fucking last.
So that was the target time that I had, and I came to Virgin BMX 2 with 5 minutes to spare before cutoff. And I looked at the sunrise, and I tried to envision to not just have to climb back up towards the finish, that giant steep ass hill, but also to have to do one more, almost an entire day in the heat, and I just couldn't do it. It was so hot last time.
That second day was really hot, and actually I don't think you were that far behind me, because I pulled into Virgin BMX with about 20 minutes before the cutoff, so you were probably only about 15 minutes behind me.
I know. That's the torture part of it, because now you question yourself and you ask yourself, could I have rallied? Could I have been able to sort of get myself back out of the aid station? But at this point, I just didn't have enough time to sort of reset because I only had 5 at the aid session. What was your lowest point? Where was your lowest point at that race?
I would say my lowest point during that race was probably actually probably close to around mile 51. This was just after I found out like my ankle injury was just getting worse, and this was after I took my shoes off and noticed that my feet were just they were raw, and I had like really bad blood blisters, and I was sitting there at BMX at mile 51, and the medic is just this cool guy, and he was trying to cheer me up while I was eating a burrito lying on the ground, and he was like draining my blood blister with the syringe, which he gave me, so I had to constantly drain that out throughout the race. And he was just like, "You ran 10 miles on this? Oh my God, you're a rock star." And then that was nice. And then like a minute later, he's like, "Oh man, like there's a lot of blood coming out of here." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what everyone wants to hear at mile 50."
Oh man, that downhill just before Virgin BMX, that super sketchy flying monkey downhill, that almost did me in because I hit that up. I don't know what that mesa was called just before, but I hit it when it was fairly cool because the sun had already sort of gone down, but there was still light. And then we come to Flying Monkey, and I'm with a group of 2 or 3 people, and none of them had proper headlamps with them. And so I was the only one with a headlamp, and I had to navigate 2 or 3 people down that hill. And they were so unprepared for the sketchiness of the terrain that by the time I came to the aid station, I sort of was spent. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, I hit that flying monkey descent when it was dark as well. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and I can envision it in my head because a lot of that trail was so eroded, and it was just there was the rope. If you remember the rope.
Yeah, you had to throw, like the person in front of you had to kind of throw it up to you so you to even reach it at one point, right?
Yeah, it was really a sketchy climb, and I mean, that Smith one was really difficult too, but I'm glad you got to do that one when it was cooler because it was pretty hot and dry earlier.
All right. Well, so congratulations on last year's finish. It's awesome to hear that somebody who was sort of just as slow as I was actually able to rally themselves and kind of claw themselves back to a finish. So amazing job.
Thank you.
So that was last year, and you had said, did I hear that right? That was your first 100-miler?
That was my first 100-miler.
Okay. So, well, before we dive into this year, let's talk a little bit about motivation. I mean, what made you want to run 100 miles and sign up for Zion? Because you're not from the Utah area.
No, I'm actually from California. And for me, my motivation has started with my running journey, which actually was just about 4 years ago now. It's like my 4-year runniversary. I started out only being able to run like a quarter of a mile, and that was my first run. I remember it, and I just got really sick and I walked home, and I could only run like 30 minutes at a time. I couldn't run 30 minutes at a time. That was like my first goal. Then it was like a 5K, which was a scary thing, a half marathon. And I'd been doing hiking for a while, so I jumped into trail running. And I'd say about 3.5 years ago, I watched a documentary called REI, How to Run a 100. And it was just like the seed that was implanted in my head about like, at the time I was just like, man, this is just a feat that superhumans do. This is like amazing feat. Like, I don't know if I can ever do something like this. This is a lifetime thing. And then of course COVID happened and my first marathon got canceled, and signed up for my first 50K and just decided to send doing my first 100 mile. I committed to the Zion maybe like July of 2020. And it was the scariest thing I'd ever done in my entire life. And ever since then, my why has sort of evolved. I've always been doing things for a higher purpose, like charity, and running is no different. And built up a strong connection with the Ridgestone Family Center, which is the local family center in LA. And that's kind of been my extrinsic motivation. Still got ultra brain here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
And then just got like my internal motivation to just be the best version of myself. And used to be a fat kid and used to have I had a pre-diabetes diagnosis when I was 18. And so it's also just for me about living a healthy lifestyle as well.
Mhm. So we'll go into the charity a little bit later on, but it's amazing to hear these stories of how we as humans we sometimes, especially if we're doing our day-to-day work, right, we sort of struggle to even get out of bed. We sort of hate routine, and then we need routine to even function. But we're sort of able to break ourselves out of our own shell and redefine us anytime we really set our mind to. And I mean, you are such an incredible example of that. I mean, to be able to not comfortably run a quarter of a mile and then take on 100-miler within just a few years. I mean, that's wow.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think a lot of it has to do with just our perspective. I've noticed that a lot of the limits we sort of impose are self-imposed, and sometimes we don't see it right away because our Everest is relative. Like, for a person who might be viewing the show, their Everest might be like mine was 4 years ago doing their first 5K. I never thought in my life I'd be able to run 30 minutes at a time or 25 minutes at a time. And then after that, as a half marathon, like, how am I going to run 13 miles, And then it's just, I guess it's just one thing after another. And a lot of it has to do with reframing your perspective and just believing in yourself, and sometimes just taking that leap of faith and just sending it.
And it's awesome to see that we can sort of redefine, and we take on these insane projects. So you did Zion last year, and even coming in DFL, you decided that you were hooked. This was intoxicating. This was something that you wanted to keep doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew I treated that race, the last 40 miles, with my ankle injury, with everything going on. I didn't know how my body was going to react to everything. And I treated that race, even though I treated that race like it was my last race, like my last dance, like if there's one thing that I'm going to be defined for forever, it'll be this, finishing despite all the odds. I crossed that finish line, and somehow I knew, like, a minute after I crossed that finish line, like, this was only the beginning, and that I was hooked, and that I just want to keep doing this.
You just needed to drain the blisters one more time.
Just needed to drain the blisters one more time, yeah, and get some good food, a good pizza, something like that.
Fantastic. So, you just ran Zion again, but in between there's been a year. What have you done since that you sort of kind of took from your initial 100-mile experience?
Well, it was definitely a lot of things. Like I said, it was, again, reframing the perspective. I've been surrounded by some really amazing people between now and the last Zion that have really changed my mindset on what is possible. I'm friends with a guy named Justin True, who is about to set the record for the world's largest triathlon in May. That's a whole nother crazy thing. And then I'm also friends with a guy who just finished a triple crown of 200s last year, which is 3 200-milers, the Tahoe, the Bigfoot, and the Moab, all in one calendar year. And it really just, all kinds of people like that, meeting people like that made me reframe kind of what is possible for myself. So between then and Zion, between this Zion and last Zion, I did another 100-miler, the Valley of Fire 100-miler in November. And I had signed up for a 48-hour race, which I bumped up to a 72-hour race just to see if I could hit 200 miles. And I ended up going for 170 and raising $2,600 for a Redstone family. So that was another amazing experience that I had. But a lot has happened, and yeah, it's just a lot.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So do you see, how do you frame this? I interview people who and meet people who run these 100 miles because, or run these distances and put all this insane training towards it because they, everybody sort of chases a goal. Some clearly try to get entries into Western states or whatever, and some look for this running as a way to be fit to get into mountains and FKT projects and stuff like that. Where do you see yourself? Is it what sort of pulls you in to put all this insane hard work, this insane time dedication, and this willingness to work through the pain and recover? What drives you in that?
So I'm driven by I found that I'm driven by three things. One, it's to live a personally healthy lifestyle and be the healthiest person that I can, having come from food addiction and pre-diabetes. And just also mental health as well. And two, it is also just showing other people I'm just an average Joe. I was the last kid on the track, I was in remedial physical fitness. I could never pass the physical fitness test when I was a kid. Every single year I had to put in the extra work. So I'm not a born athlete, and I wasn't a kid on the track or did any endurance sports in high school or anything like that. Just to show people that anybody who sets their mind to something can achieve anything, and that anything is possible. And the other thing is just running for a higher purpose, just running to make the world a better place. I believe that it's not about me changing the world. It's about me possibly changing the person that changes the world. And that drives me constantly.
This is one of the things that I find super fascinating with trail and ultra running. I've just watched a couple documentaries on other sports, and so much of the sport in other fields is sort of predetermined by where we grew up and with how much privilege we grew up. I mean, you can enjoy ice skating any time of the year if you live somewhere where lakes are frozen over. But if you want to be part of ice skating competitions or race cars or something, then you have to have some kind of opportunity to even get yourself there. But with trail running, and trail running is still open to sort of all of us, we're able to sign up for any race that we want with, some exception and some rules around this. But we can, as you said, with not having been an athlete in school as a kid, with not having had opportunities to try out different things, we're able to experience the same incredible adventures that the top athletes in the world for our sports are doing. It's a super, super interesting level playing field.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And one thing I love about the trail community is that from top to bottom, everybody just wants everyone to succeed and to be the best version of themselves. The elites are so warm and welcoming. The back of the pack and the mid pack has so many amazing stories. I could name at least 5 off the top of my head from this year and last year of amazing athletes that have just amazing whys and amazing reasons for why they're doing this. And I love that about our community.
It is true, and it becomes so much because I don't know if it's because the distances are so long or because there's no prize money involved. I don't know really what it is, but or because it's just too hard of a thing for most people to attempt. But it becomes so much of a personal journey and a personal overcoming, and I think that's what we're cheering on in each other, right? Because nobody elbows the other person out of the way at a 100-mile race between aid stations, right? And I think that's what makes these experiences so special.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, at the last Zion, there were two people who suffered during the heat, and there were a couple other runners who stopped their entire race to make sure that rescue services got to them, or volunteers or somebody got to them, and just stayed with them. And I've seen that in multiple races, and I know in my heart that's something that I would do as well. And it's just this magic that binds us all.
Yeah, no, it's really true. You speak and ex- get to the core of the heart of what our sport is all about, and I love that because it's not about chasing glory. I mean, it is for ourselves, right? I mean, being able to hold a buckle in our hands in the end does feel great, right? But
Absolutely.
it is about more, right? Well,
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just moving on and saying, all right, so Zion twice completed. What's on the horizon for the rest of the year?
So in 4 weeks, I'm gearing up to do the Samo 100, which is the new race in Los Angeles in the Santa Monica Mountains, a 100-miler.
Cool.
Um, and then in June, I'm going to Peru to do a stage race. It's sort of an adventure race over 5 days in the rainforest. And that's something unlike anything I've ever done before. And that's going to be an exciting experience in itself. And then in July, I'm gearing up to switch to my through hiking muscles, and I'm actually planning on taking the Icelandic Traverse from south to north. So I'm crossing Icewind from um, south to north, and that'll be about 16 days and 300 miles.
I mean, these are all really really big projects. Do you have enough time to recover in between?
It's something that has sort of like I've sort of shaped my goals based around like listening to my body and just kind of pushing myself just a little harder with my goals over the last year and just seeing how my body reacts to it. A lot of it has to do with kind of the mobility work that I do, the strength training that I do, and for me personally, adopting a plant-based diet.
It is also a little bit interesting. I don't know if that's fair. I'm curious what you're saying. I was just a couple of weeks ago talking to Hannes Namberger from Germany, and he's one of the top athletes coming in at UTMB in the top 10. And he is dialing back the amount of races that he's doing in the year in order to be at peak performance. But I think it's a little bit different for him. I'm phrasing this as a question because he's pushing himself so hard at races. Are we at the back of the Packers because we can be more relaxed? Are we able to take on more? Question mark.
Oh, I get what you're saying for sure. I know for a fact that like if I had a goal of like I want to have the best race possible or something, I would probably set aside doing a bunch of A races and maybe just like focus on that race and put together a solid 12 to 16 week training block. Right now, my focus definitely is like volume because in 2023, I'm actually taking on what they unofficially call the Grand Slam of 200 milers. I'm doing the Cocodona, the Tahoe, Bigfoot, and Moab all in one calendar year. So I'm really just trying to like build my volume right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a lot of miles on your feet. So do you feel like, I mean, you've been fairly new still in the sport. Do you feel like from a gear point of view and stuff, you're fully dialed in? I mean, you
Uh,
are, but speak to it as a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. It was sort of a trial and error, and I know that there's definitely gonna be little little things that'll change depending on the type of terrain you're doing, the type of races you're doing. But as far as companies and brands go, I'm definitely dialed in. As far as shoes, as of this year, I'm actually a sponsored Merrell athlete. And so I wear Merrell shoes on the trails, and I wear Saucony shoes on the road. And uh, those have been really great for my feet, for my foot type. And as far as my hydration vest, I've been using Nathan. I bounced back early in my career between Nathan and Solomon, but I've had a good time and I feel really comfortable with the Nathan vest. So that's those. And then as far as the trekking poles, it's always between Lucky and Black Diamond from what I've seen, and I've loved my Black Diamond Carbon Z's a lot, so I don't really want to part with those.
I know they've taken me on many great adventures as well. The way they fold up works pretty well. Well, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your higher purpose. You are running all of these adventures, but as much as some people would question if it is a selfish act, right? Because we are doing all this training, we're spending all this money traveling around, and we're sort of running for hours at a time. But in the end, we can find something that takes us to a place. Where does it take you?
For me, like, it's just I definitely agree with you that it can be seen as a selfish endeavor. I think that's definitely perspective, because sometimes I like to think in my head that doing these things for a higher purpose is in part selfish, because we as human beings, when we do a good deed, or when we do something good and we get that thank you, or we see somebody happy, or we see that we're helping someone, we get that good feeling. So maybe I'm just chasing that feeling, but I I don't know if I would be doing any of this, or at this level, I would say, if it wasn't for the higher purpose that I'm running for. And I've been working with Ridgestone Family for the last 4 or 5 years. It's not like picking a charity, picking a charity on GoFundMe or Instagram and just saying that I'm going to run for these guys and send them money. I've actually volunteered down there, done homework with the kids. Maybe I should dial it back and kind of explain what Ridgestone does.
Yeah, absolutely. To give us a little bit of a perspective.
Sure. So Ridgestone's been around since 1974. They're like a small to mid-sized charity that's grown over time. They're feet on the ground in Los Angeles. They work with families in low-income brackets to prevent child abuse, domestic violence, and to end generational trauma. But instead of kind of adopting just the kids and giving the kids a safe space, they adopt the entire family, because there's kind of a sort of a generational trauma, and adopting the entire family helps you sort of break that cycle. And so those are things that are all really close to my heart, and just like those kids are. And I really love the staff over there. I love the kids that I work with, do homework with, play games with. They're all kids like from maybe the ages of 5 to like high school age. And it's just, I see their faces when I run my races, and I see the faces of the staff and the families. And when your inside factors run out, like your personal motivation for like lifestyle and like losing weight, or like whatever it is, your own why runs out, I always have that to fall back on. My mantra is always going to be for the kids.
Mm-hmm. No, that's beautiful. So we'll definitely link this organization in the show notes, and I'll encourage everyone to check it out and to see how they can get involved and support this. How do you take this with you as you're going out on these races? What do you take with you when you're there?
What do I take with me? Well,
In terms
I
of
know.
emotion, in terms of emotionally, right? You're sort of going out there, and as you're out there on these courses, are you thinking of the kids? Is it like, how do you sort of bring these pieces together?
Absolutely. I think for me, I always just remember the fact that like when we sign up for these races, no matter how far we end up getting in these races, it is sort of a privilege that we have, and it's a choice that we make. We know that when we sign up for these races, that we're paying for that suffering and that growth and being out there. But there are, then I think about the kids, the parents, the families, and the things that they're going through. And I realize that they don't have a choice with what they're going through, the suffering that they're going through, but we do. So it's sort of like empowering to know that like you can use this sport to change people's perspectives, but also just show them how passionate you are about a cause and to make them really rally behind you, because it's an amazing thing how we rally behind somebody when they have like that infect energy and that passion. It's so infectious.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that you find something that that you run for, that it's not just for yourself. That's amazing. All right, I only have you for 5 more minutes. Let's quickly talk about this year's Zion, because we never really could touched on that. How was Zion different this year compared to last year for you?
Well, definitely a lot of improvements I noticed, but the biggest one was, of course, that my nutrition was dialed in this year much better than last year. After switching to plant-based, and my foot care was dialed in. Last year, my foot care, I made plenty of rookie mistakes. This year, I was on top of changing my socks. If you remember at mile 51 after BMX, there was like a river crossing in a swamp.
Hmm.
I was, I was really careful about like switching my socks out and like changing shoes if I needed to, and just using like squirrel nut butter, and just um, my gear was all dialed in. My just it felt like an all around better race. I did suffer from unexpected issues and nausea that came from mile 43 after the Smith climb to down to BMX. And it was sort of a recurring issue, but I finished the race strong, and I was able to finish almost an hour and 45 minutes ahead of where I was last year. So I was really excited to kind of go back and finish that race stronger.
Amazing. Do you feel like you were faster because you are an all-around stronger runner now a year later, because you knew the course and you sort of were better prepared for? Do you feel like you just were able to put pieces better together than last time? What do you contribute to be the factor that made you improve so much?
I think it was the mindset running for Ritstone. It was also knowing the course definitely helps, but because in trail running you're dealing with so much acclimate weather, some kind of like inclement weather, or like the type of conditions you're going to get are so different. There's always that unknown factor, and this year it was definitely a hotter year, even though we had gusts. So that climb up to Smith on the asphalt was even hotter than last year. Um,
I hated that climb.
and then the BMX aid station was engulfed in like a dust tornado. I was sitting there at the aid station, and there was like dust blowing in my eyes. I took pictures there, and I look like I'm just like covered in like chocolate powder. Um, I just like I turned around to the aid station, and the whole thing is just like looks like it's engulfed in like a tornado. It was just There was like 30-mile-per-hour winds, and it was so windy. And I did the gooseberry climb when it was that windy, and um, just a different set of conditions to deal with. I feel like every race, even the same race, is can be different. It's definitely not crossing the same river twice.
Yeah, yeah. Even though that was a funny metaphor because you do have to cross the swamp twice.
Yeah, that's the you definitely do. Oh man.
Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story. Again, congratulations on a very, very successful Scion 100 finish for you, and I'm excited to follow you along as you are embarking on all your various journeys. Tell our listeners where they can connect with you and reach out to you.
Well, you can find me on Instagram. It's the Aum Gandhi, so that's the AUMGANDHI. That's the best place to find me, and you'll find all the information there about me, my link tree, and the fundraiser we're doing for Richstone Family this year to raise $25,000 in the 2022 calendar year. And I'm excited for everyone to follow along on my journey, especially you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited to see especially your Iceland crossing. I've now flown a couple times through Iceland, but never actually properly set foot in the country, and it always looks very, very intriguing. So excited to see what is ahead for you. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see each other on the trail in some way or another.
Yeah, I'll see you on the trails. We've already crossed paths once before, so we definitely will again.
All right, the announcement you've all been waiting for, and I've been teasing on various social channels for the last 4 weeks or so. Rock Candy Running, hey, that's me, is taking over directing the Beast of Big Creek trail races above Hoodsport by Lake Cushman in the Olympic Mountains. I've ran the summit race twice and absolutely loved this little trail race in the Olympics. John Johnson, the founder and previous race director, graciously passed on the torch to me, worked with me to get the permits handed over with the Olympic National Forest. Thank you, John, for envisioning such an incredible event and directing it over the last 11 years. So, as we're heading into year 12, this is what Beast of Big Creek is. And, in short, for folks who know the Beast, this year will keep it largely the same. We increased the permits to allow more runners to come out and enjoy these trails, but overall, it still is the same race. We start and finish at Big Creek Campground, and the little race, a 7-miler, has about 1,200 feet of elevation gain and winds itself through lush Olympic mountain forests, over bridges, across little magical streams. It's a great little race to show the best of the Olympics. The 14-miler, that's the summit race. That's the real beast. You climb over 5,000 feet in around 7 miles to the true summit of Mount Eleanor. Yes, a real mountain race to real mountain summit. I'm so stoked to bring this race to you. Once you're at the summit, you turn around and scream back down to where you came from. Mount Eleanor is a popular hiking trail, but most folks take the upper trailhead to the summit, and even for them, the upper part of the trail to the summit is no joke. You, running beast, will get to enjoy the lush forest trails below with barely any easing in. The trail just climbs and climbs, and the upper section is really tough. Boulders, big awkward steps, some loose rock, and the occasional mountain goat. It's not an easy race. That's in the past made harder due to very tight cutoff. I'll keep the race just as tough, but will ease up on the cutoff time and allow you to finish. Because you need to experience this race, these trails, that summit, and those views. Beast of Big Creek has always been a special race to me as a runner, and I'm hugely honored to be able to direct the race this year and take it into the future. This year, due to LBA being locked in for early August, race day for Beast will be July 23rd. Next year, we'll move it back into early August. So, to learn all about the race info and to sign up, head to rockcandyrunning.com/beast. We've got some early bird pricing, so be sure to sign up early because even with the increase in permit size, this one will surely sell out. So again, rockcandyrunning.com/beast is where it's at. Come and join us at Big Creek and race Mount Eleanor this summer. And with that, goodbye and auf Wiedersehen. Bis zum nächsten Mal. See you next time.